Hey everybody, it's Pete. Welcome to Stock Trading Pro. Oh my gosh, do we have a lot to talk about today? We're going to talk about what happened prior to the Fed coming out. We're going to talk about when the Fed made the announcement, how you absolutely needed to be patient, how the market internals were just lighting it up in a way to be obvious. We have been talking about this since the beginning of January of 2022, that patience and waiting for the right moment, keeping risk down when it's not obvious. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. First, we're going to talk about what happened, why the market just absolutely exploded, and what the Fed did, where we are now in the futures, which is dramatically different from where we were yesterday afternoon. We're going to break down the top 31 stocks. There are going to be opportunities to trade today. I'm going to give you the entire list. I'm going to break it down. We're also going to go over sector rotation. So we have a ton of stuff to talk about today. I'm just super pumped to get this out there. We'll be back in just 1 second. Okay, so if you could just please do me a favor, if you get some value out of today's video, hit subscribe. I hope I earned that from you right now. We're going to jump right into it. Obviously, the big story, Fed raises interest rates by 0.5 percentage point, the biggest single hike in 2 decades to fight inflation. There's no doubt that inflation is through the roof right now. Just go anywhere. Now, the biggest things we want to talk about are these two key points over here, because you'll notice that at 2:30, when the Fed made the announcement, let's just actually get right into it. Right here, right there is when it came out, and everything after that is what we're going to focus on right now. So obviously, we have personally been talking about for a while that the Fed announcement, the pending Fed announcement, was actually priced in. And I just want to reiterate that, just in case you haven't seen our channel, you haven't been to the channel. And essentially what we're talking about was this rally here off the last Fed announcement came after this big move to the downside. And it's absolutely one of the biggest mistakes that traders make, smart traders really, who don't pay attention to what did the price actually recently do before I'm looking to get involved in this stock, and whether or not the smart money made their moves prior to the news coming out. And we had exactly the same thing happen here for the time period into yesterday's news. And we actually broke support. Let's actually take a step back here, because I'm just so pumped right now. There's so much that we nailed this week reading the tape. We talked about 416 last week being a big level. We talked about the Fed pricing it in. We talked about the fact that a short squeeze was coming after we took out this level to the downside, which, by the way, there's another stock. We're going to take a look at that in a second. And here's what we got, right? Absolutely, positively amazing feeling to strip this out 3 days before it happens, and now it unfolds. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is actually getting paid and making sure that you are net money, not just making back money that you threw away when it was a choppy mess and there was nothing at all to do. So you can see the announcement came out. And then as they started to talk a little bit more, this is obviously a way of them increasing interest rates by dumping the bonds that they already hold, the bond holdings. But I think probably the biggest thing, which launched the market into the stratosphere here, after we were looking for some semblance of a footing. And right here, this candle right here, we call this a bullish U-turn, which is a momentum reversal candle where you have some bearish price action. This candle here goes beyond that candle to the bottom, rallies back up, closes above the open, which means it closes green, and closes above the previous low. That coincided with this, which is by far the biggest thing that was talked about yesterday. Was, if you remember heading into yesterday, we were talking about the expectation of whether it was going to be 0.50 or 0.75 basis points. 0.50 is what was expected, and we were planning for that based on the fact that the market had already priced that in. It was the indecision around whether or not it was going to be 0.5 versus 0.75. 0.75 would have been the Fed signaling that they were being aggressive, maybe even you could use a little bit of a strong language of panicking, but they didn't. They gave us exactly what was expected. And when they announced this, that they will not, I can't stress this strongly, not something the committee is actively considering. And as a matter of fact, the future rates this year will not be as aggressive. The market interpreted that as amazing, amazing news. And that is actually where we just went off to the races. And that was yesterday afternoon. Now, I want to talk about some stocks that we brought up in yesterday's game plan. And I want to keep it simple because it really doesn't need to be complicated. We brought up AMD yesterday. We talked about trading AMD after this big gap up and whether or not it was going to hold the bid. It did not hold the bid. So we actually did nothing. We had a bunch of people writing in and sending emails saying, you talked about trading AMD and AMD went right down from the open. Well, If you listen to what we said, we were super clear that the line in the sand was AMD needed to stay above that level. Then we would get involved. We did not trade AMD until it looked like it was bottoming out over here. And then obviously over here, you can see that AMD had the same exact bullish U-turn. And this one opportunity translated into a monster part of the week, probably made your entire week. The point I'm trying to get across here is risk management in the current market conditions is everything. Which stocks you trade is everything. Now, that's the beautiful part of yesterday. And now we're waking up today. And if you would have asked me yesterday, we're going to follow through and have a big day, I would have said yes. I would have said yes. We're going to follow through on Thursday and Friday. And what, of course, happens in this crazy market, the stock market that we're in right now, stock futures are slipping and we are actually down as investors reassess the Fed comments. So what does that mean? And what does that mean for trading today and tomorrow, quite frankly? We'll just take a look at this and show you where we're at right now. So you can see what happened yesterday afternoon. You can see what happened overnight. And you can see where we are now. We're kind of just melting lower. This means that we really, really need to be very stock specific in the ideas that we're looking at right now. And we need to build a list of stocks that meet the perfect criteria in this chaotic flip-flopping back and forth market that we have. Now, I want to go out to the bigger picture before we break down those stocks. And I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this. We are in no way, shape, or form after yesterday out of the woods. And you can see the big move down, right? We obviously have this support level. So what I want to do is I want to get this off of here. And I'm going to start here again, because the whole conversation's been about inflation. And we'll go over here to the start of the year. This is 2022. This is the weekly chart of 2022. It's all selling. We are not out of the woods yet. Now, a bullish engulfing candlestick on the SPY is a strong reversal pattern, a very strong reversal pattern. And you can see we got one here. These are bullish U-turns. This bullish U-turn led to this rally. This bullish U-turn led to a 2-week rally, basically. This bullish U-turn led nowhere. So this is very powerful, but it's only powerful in the sense that if we close here, we need to close. So this is really the big point I want to get across. We're down right now in the futures, but we need to close above last week's high. We need to go bullish engulfing candlestick. And if you don't know what that means, it means that it took out the previous low and took out the previous high and stayed above the previous high. So this level right now, last week's high of 429.64 is the big level. And you can see that we kind of just basically flirted there. But now the fact that the futures are actually down this morning, we are restarting the cog again, which means that we need to have the best stocks in our list right now. Now, what am I expecting for next week, which is the big thing? And I'm just so pumped right now because it's amazing the price action we're getting. Just unbelievable price action right now. If we finish as a bullish engulfing candlestick and finish above last week's high, obviously closing strong here, then I'm fully looking for us to make it all the way back up into the 440 area, mid 440s. Am I expecting this? I heard some people talk about new all-time highs. Get that garbage out of your head. Nobody knows what's going to happen 3 weeks from now. We can tell you right now, based on reading the tape, based on reading the order flow, that's what I'm looking at if we close above last week's high. Now, which stocks are we going to be looking at? We're going to break this down. Let me zoom this out a little bit so you can see it a little bit clearer. Very, very clearly, the size of the list of stocks that meet the perfect order flow expanded dramatically from the previous day. And if we break this down a little bit more, you can see the sector rotation as it unfolded during the week. Coming into Monday, it was just an absolute mess. Coming into Tuesday, it was a little bit signs of life, a little bit choppier, but some signs of life. All right. We had tech, and believe it or not, technology actually still carrying the bid, which was interesting. Communication services still bouncing off of some of the earnings that we saw. Heading into Wednesday, which is the big decision day, and the Fed, nobody was really taking a position. You can see that it was kind of all over the market, although energy, you can see our energy for 3 days coming into this week, money was rotating in. And now even heading into heading into Thursday, energy is still pretty strong. So this is what we had, but that's not enough heading into today. We still need to find the best of the best ideas, which brings us into this list. Now, the one thing I want to say, obviously the list expanded dramatically. You could pause this, you could freeze it, you could take a look at the ideas you want to talk about. But here's the big thing. If you want a copy of this, I'll actually provide a link below the video. You can download a copy for yourself. And what you need to do is you're going to go over here to File, Download, and then Microsoft Excel. That's how you can pull up your own copy. But this is the big thing. When you are in a market environment where you have this absolute explosion one day on news, and then the news gets digested the next day, you need to go into the next day with a rock solid plan of the idea. So when you're breaking this list down and you pull it out for yourself and you start to cycle it, you want to go into the list and you want to sort it. You want to get a feel for, are there any dominant industries right now that you can lean on for the higher probability order flow? Again, you can see which ones are strong across multiple timeframes, which was strong over the last 5 weeks, which ones have been strong over the last 4 weeks. So you can see basic materials here has 3, consumer cyclical, which has been pretty strong. But again, digging a little bit deeper, some of these consumer cyclical stocks are Chinese companies that had news last week. Not necessarily something I'd be leaning on right now. Home Depot has been in a longer term trading range. Let's actually go on the daily chart here. We're looking for this to break out. That's a big deal right now. As you can see, it's actually pushed down, stuck in a box. Home Depot, we're looking for it to be over 316, 317. Okay. Energy. That's the big thing I wanted to get across here. Energy. I can't even say it any other way. If you look at the rotation for the entire week coming into Monday, energy was at the top of the list. Although it was negative, it was still at the top of the list, which means it was quote unquote holding the bid. Energy coming in, perking up, energy perking in, coming up, and coming into Thursday, energy green across the board. Now, you could be looking at this and saying maybe some of these are a little bit overbought. We've been talking about VLO every day, and you can make a strong argument for that. So that means that energy right now, even though it's at the top of the list, and this is what separates somebody who makes money from somebody who struggles, is the fact that they're not reading the tape. In this case here, VLO and a lot of these energy stocks are on fire, but now they're what we might call a bullish echo, where they're a little bit overbought, well beyond the optimal entry, which means that we'd be looking for day trades right now, looking for the next pause, something like this or something like this before we look for the next swing. So again, this is what game planning is all about. So as much as energy is at the top of the list and is dominating there, you have to go into the list and figure out which of those meet the criteria for your personal resources and whether or not it's a day trade or a swing trade. A couple of other ones, industrial starting to perk up on the list right now. And we have been looking at Honeywell and we've been looking at the airlines. So we want to talk about a couple here. Honeywell, again, you probably heard me talk about this often. Let it tip its hand and then hop on board. Consolidation, blast through, and a what we call a fuel candlestick breaking out. And now we're looking for it to make a run up towards 220. Stop loss for me would be below this candlestick that broke out, which is right around 196. Okay, getting into some of the airline stocks, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, and Southwest Airlines. Those are the 3 that are at the top of the list right now. I want to keep walking my way through this because there's so much to talk about right now. WDC, which had the giant move a couple of days ago. We talked about that, where they're talking about the possibility of splitting the company. Again, if you remember what we talked about, and I'm going to really drill this home because there's earnings we're going to talk about again in a second, which is Mara. If you remember what we talked about, we said when this big gap up happened after the news, you need to have that line in the sand. You need to understand how to read the tape. And those become the easier trades. And you can see 60 to 63. Not a monster move compared to what some of the other ones did, but it never came back to the price that we said to watch. These are the kind of opportunities that just, when you plan for them, they're quote unquote easier to manage because you were ready for them before they happened. So I'm going to give you one little bonus, just one other list of stocks in play. If you want, you can take a look at this list and break it down. These are stocks that meet the perfect criteria. This is stocks that have 2 weeks momentum. Last thing I want to talk about is Mara. Mara has been a stock that we've been watching for a long time, obviously tied to Bitcoin and Bitcoin futures, which has been in the doghouse, really hasn't moved for a while. But Mara reported, you could see not much move off the reporting and just kind of stuck in the mud. So if I'm looking at Mara right now, which I do like to trade Mara quite a bit, I'm going to pull this down and I am going to show you exactly what would need to happen for me to get involved in Mara. So right there is the breakdown in Mara. So you know that we're very big on trading in and out of that box. So what I need to happen now, since this broke, is we need to get above the level from yesterday. As long as we get above yesterday, then we're going to look for a run up into the 21 to the 22 area. Now, what's interesting, again, putting the Mara news into context, mixed earnings, right? So was all of this selling that we saw in Mara already priced in from one earnings report to the next? Now, is that going to relieve the pressure and we start to see it rally? You can see we have 3 days of green prior to the earnings coming out. We'll see. We're looking to break that box. I'm going to drop that down on the 60 again, and you can see where we're looking at. Now, the biggest price to look at for when you're looking for targets are the last place in the case of buying opportunity. Where's the last place that sellers held this down, where they held the offer, and we're looking at right around just below 22. If we zoom that out a little bit more and go to the most recent price action and do a Fibonacci retracement, just keeping it super simple, then we're looking at up in this area around 24. So somewhere between 22 and 24. I'm out of breath right now because I'm very excited. I can't wait to trade today. I will put a copy of this below inside the description. You can download a copy for yourself. Have an awesome, awesome day, everybody.